if I had a penny for every time that I had to run back a review because I accidentally deleted the audio before editing, I'd have 4 pennies. Shit's crazy. So, the movie we're going to talk about tonight is called Smothered, and it's a Shudder film that came out today. It's Indonesian, and I was looking forward to it because Joko Anwar, who directed one of my favorite movies of all time, Satan's Slaves, produced it. And anything he touches pretty much turns to cinnamon flavored gold. He is just awesome. By the way, as I'm giving you my talk on this movie, there is no trailer on the internet for this unless you have Shudder, which is really crazy. And you can't screen record off of Shudder, which is crazier. So unfortunately for this review, all you're looking at is my fucking mug. But I'll try to make it as concise and as quick as possible so you're not completely dozing the fuck off. Now I'm going to do this review in 2 parts. I'm going to do the spoiler review and then, no, wait, the non-spoiler review first, like I did with Backrooms, and then I'm going to do the spoiler review last, giving you guys ample time to experience it spoiler-free, which means I will tell you when to go away and then come back whenever you've seen the film. So you're free to listen to this review now until I tell you otherwise. I can't honestly talk about movies if I can't talk about the things that worked, especially if the things that worked were narrative devices, plot devices, character moments. So now the movie follows a man who has amnesia after a head-to-head collision that was very much seemingly intentional. And he comes back home not remembering who he used to be. But you get a feeling that who he used to be might not have been a very nice guy because his wife flinches whenever he touches her lovingly, which already kind of tells you what kind of relationship it was. Seemingly. But he's a total different guy now, and he's conflicted with what people used to think about him and who he is now as a person. Now, upon coming home, he gets a weird text message from a woman that claims to be his mother, asking if he can still pick her up from the airport. And that's where the story really starts. The film is alluding to this strained relationship between him and his family, or a strained relationship that used to exist, but it's also alluding to a mystery about this woman that claims to be his mother. The movie just had every opportunity, and I mean this wholeheartedly, to be a cult classic in the ways that films done to perfection when it comes to things of memory or time lapses, like those kinds of films tend to be a staple in sort of cult cinema, and they tend to stick around and linger. It's the kind of films that are like, hey, you want something that's mind-bending? Let me tell you about this movie, and then people watch it, and the word of mouth spreads. And this movie had every opportunity to be that kind of movie, and even more so on a disappointing capacity when you realize and you make it to the end just how good that last act, that last 30 minutes, and the revelation of all of these, this amalgamation of questions that you have that all get answered. The revelation, for once in a movie, on a very rare occasion, is actually so satisfying and so dark, and it pushes narrative boundaries in terms of, if this was shot here, we would have not shown what this is, what the revelation was. And what it is was so satisfying that it disappointed me further that the film itself, the first two acts, could not live up to that revelation, which I guess that alone is enough for me to tell you, hey, if you can stomach some bad execution, this revelation might work for you on almost every level. The movie does a good job of like sprinkling questions and red line across, metaphorically speaking, red lines across a map, connecting all these potential ideas that could mean many different things. And when I thought that I had it figured out, the movie did an absolute 180 on me and then said, no, you don't. And I was very surprised. It didn't feel cheap. It just felt like a really good sleight of hand that I was genuinely surprised worked on 2 or 3 occasions. The themes and the story and the revelations work, but everything in between, everything in between this, which is the supernatural horror elements, because he keeps having hallucinations, which is one of the tropes I really don't like in movies is hallucinations and flashbacks. I can't fucking stand them, especially because they don't most it feels like for me at least in movies, they just don't unfold organically and they always come at the worst time. They slow down the pace and when you're focused on something, hey, let's put a fucking flashback here and sort of reset your wiring to from whatever it is you're intrigued right now to this. And this movie has that hallucination trope, and worst of all, it does it in moments where it's presenting a mystery to you and it's telling you, well, follow these pieces, and you think that it's gonna click in a way that is smart, and then they just go, all right, well, before you figure it out, here's the hallucination to tell you the whole fucking thing. And I hate that. It's like, let me figure it out, you know. Hallucination, and they so many hallucinations in this movie that are, it's like the thing that bookends every chapter. Like every 10-15 minutes there's a moment where the movie feeds you more through hallucinations, and I just think it's so uninteresting. At that moment, I stopped trying to be immersed because I know you're going to give me a flashback, and we still got the big revelation at the end of the movie, so why are you giving me flashbacks now? Then we also do the same scare that is correlated to an image that he's repressed from his childhood. That is the jump scare of the movie, and they use it so much that none of the horror elements in this movie work. Fuck all. But what had me intrigued was the sort of relationship between his wife now and what she isn't telling him about who he used to be and how he used to be. And then this relationship with his son, and then ultimately the relationship with his mother and the guilt that he's feeling about all the things that he wished he remembered, because it seems like his mother and him, she's from a very poor village and he's a well-off adult now, and there's this sort of guilt that he's feeling of like, wow, why didn't I ever take care of my mom? Like, what a piece of shit I was before this car accident, that I let my mom live the way she lived. And he just, the main actor does such a great job letting you know that he is hurt and that he is aching, and there's a couple moments where like I genuinely felt empathy for him, because I was like, damn dog, like to regret and to feel pain over things you cannot remember and have no way of figuring out how you can close that loop is rough, because you're feeling guilt that, you know, subconsciously right now you don't know you caused. You're feeling guilty for a bunch of things that in your current state don't remember doing. And that all was really interesting. And then ultimately figuring out the intentions of this woman. You know, is she his mother? What are her intentions? Is she his mother coming back with negative intentions, or not his mother with negative intentions regardless? And the movie does a great job of flip-flopping that, and it becomes sort of an identity mystery horror. And a lot of things work. What doesn't work is there's the hallucinations fucking eat my ass, and not in a good way. And the jump scare wasn't efficient. Jump scares don't get me, so I was already kind of like, oh, that's a wasted scare on me. I wish there was more. There's no entity here, so it's not like, hey, let's build the dread. It really does lean into the psychological elements of it. I wish you just focused on that. That would have been good enough. And there's a couple moments where they do this sort of separate sort of visual to sound thing where he looks at something and he's remembering the sound of the car, and the car sounds like a sound bite from software or Canva. Like, it's just it's weird. It's a small thing. The movie kind of stumbles the first 2 acts, but once it hits that hour and 3-minute mark, and I know because I pressed on the thing and I saw it's like hour and 3-minute mark was when I was like, you're finally hitting the right stride, and it turns into something more. I was really in for the ride, but even then it stumbled in little bits and pieces, and I just felt like it almost felt like a first draft or a second draft to something that needed more layers, but nonetheless the revelation on this was worth sticking through it, even if in certain moments I lost interest, because the revelation feels like if this movie would have stuck that landing in terms of the build up, I would have been saying this is a cult classic and everyone needs to see this. And right now, I don't know if I can recommend it, but if you're even remotely curious about that third act, I almost feel like it's worth watching for the dynamics of the characters and that revelation. So that is my non-spoiler review. You've been warned. It's about to happen. I'm about to jump into the spoilers. So you have till the end of this sentence to go away and come back when you've watched it so we can have a proper discussion. But if you're here, welcome to the spoiler discussion, spoiler review, and it'll be super quick. What I liked about this movie, it's revelation, okay? When he comes out of the hospital and he has amnesia, his wife acts very weird towards him. You later find out that she had an affair. Now, you probably guessed that, and so did I. What you didn't guess is the reason she had an affair is because he's distant. And the reason that he's distant is because he's had this repressed issue, this anger, this aggression that he's been dealing with. You find out that when he was a child, he was part of a very poor village, and his mother was considered the local prostitute, and men would line up to have their way with her in front of him because they lived in a small hut. He couldn't just go outside, and she just kept her in a she kept him in a corner to watch, unfortunately. And sometimes he would watch her be ravaged by multiple men at the same time. One day he snaps, grabs a knife, tries to kill the guy who is currently having sexual intercourse with his mom, and then turns the knife on her and kills her, and then completely decides to never talk about it again. So when his wife cheats on him, he remembers, he thinks, and he finds this sort of he finds this he associates his mother's actions with her, calls her a whore, then goes on a drive and causes the car accident, which was then intentional. And he obviously now with amnesia doesn't remember any part of that part of his life. He starts uncovering these things as the movie moves forward, and the woman who is not in fact his mother, who would have guessed it, is actually, and this is the part I didn't guess, someone he hired to pretend to be his mother, who was poor, off the street, so that he could have her fill that gap as his mother and have his wife, who never met his mother, shut up about the damn thing. So now that he has amnesia, the woman who is pretending to be his mother, who was hired by him, is completely confused as to why he's acting the way he does. Like, he doesn't remember anything. And you don't figure this out till later, when he goes to this really shitty side of town and goes on this little chase to find her and finds out she's part of a group of scammers, and it's a whole thing. And now then the problem is that what happened to his real mother? Is he going to remember? That's the one thing. Remember, he doesn't remember that. When he finally remembers and he goes to that town where his mother and him used to live, you get the entire hallucination. And this would have been the one time where I would have been okay with a hallucination if we built up to it in a way that felt satiating, but we really didn't. That being said, the last 20 minutes of this film are intense, emotional, and maddening. When you see him and you see the full-fledged picture, of what's happening to her and what built up to him finally stabbing her, it's dark and it's heavy. And the way that he's reacting as these memories are flooding back, where now it makes sense that his amnesia, all these memories are suddenly colliding with him. And I get, like, part of the story is that he's having these uncontrolled hallucinations that are memories, but using them every time frequently was just kind of a cop-out. And here it made sense because he's in the space, he's in that place, it's finally coming to. And that part was so heavy and emotional that I was like, man, if this movie had stuck the landing, I'd be telling everyone how much of a masterpiece, psychological horror masterpiece this is. Little elements of Memento and Identity. Like, it's so many little things that could have worked to make this feel like a true noir psychological blend, but it really didn't hit it. Nonetheless, I'm glad I watched it. And I can't wait to see what this director does next with a tighter script and tighter budget. But yeah, that was quite the experience. I was in and out of it a couple times, but genuinely that last 30-40 minutes brought me in. So do what you will with that information. That is my review for Smothered. I will see you guys tomorrow for another film. And I'm going to edit this and go play some Lego Batman because Gotham needs me. Anyway, I'll see you at the movies.